All right. So Rob, take it away.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good to see a lot of folks and friends that I know and people that I've worked with over the years. So this, in fact, is I see a lot of my friends on the screen here. This is going to be a review for some of you because I know some of you are doing a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, and some of you are doing a fabulous job. In fact, that's why many of you are doing a fabulous job with their safety programs and reducing injuries because of the things that you have instituted in terms of injury investigation and accident reviews and things like that. So again, it's good to see everybody. This is going to be very discussion based. We've got slides, folks, but I'll be literally just kind of perusing some of these slides and really going through some of the main slides. But most of all, it's going to be very much discussion based. We're going to tell some stories and things like that. But I'm not going to focus on every single slide. And the reason why is because we're going to be actually sending these slides back to you all. These slides have a lot of detailed information in it, and it would be unfair for me to sit there and literally go through every single slide and go through every detail. So it would be very much discussion based. I'd also love for you to go ahead and participate, ask questions along the way. As always, if I don't have the answer right now, I'll get the answer to you. So we'll make sure that we have your email, and I'll make sure that I follow up with you. Okay. I do have two requests though before we begin. And one of them is that if you're a Dodger fan, I need you to log off right now. You can leave the room. And there's no need for us to engage or talk. So you might as well just go ahead and log off. I'm kidding, of course. Don't do that. Don't do that. So yeah, Robert, go Giants, baby. Tonight, 6:07 first pitch. Don't be late, folks. Make sure you tune in. Right? You need as much energy. And if you're going to go to the game, I'm jealous. But my second request is to ask everyone, point blank, why are investigating injuries and accidents important? Why are we even doing this training? Why is the process of investigating injuries, near misses, whatever, very, very important? Why do we even do this? And you can chat, or you can just go off mute. Okay, so Deborah, good. To avoid as many injuries as possible, right? What else? Yeah, Kyle, that's a great answer to distinguish or potentially illustrate workers' comp fraud or red flags, right? So that you can go and communicate to us and our third-party administrator that there are red flags in the event somebody is trying to work the system, so to speak. Yes, Athena, I love it, and that's actually one of my favorite ones you just said right now. And Athena Beth says, everyone is one of our superstar HR consultants, just like Janice is, and just like all of our HR consultants are. So Athena, great job. And what Athena said, as you just saw, was ultimately to make sure that there's not a repeat of that injury, right? We don't want injuries to occur over and over again. So if you have an accident, you want to make sure that accident never, ever, ever happens again. Okay, or that incident. It doesn't necessarily mean, folks, when we talk about accidents, we're not just talking about injuries, from a human standpoint. We're talking about everything that occurs in incidents. So this is why we actually even call it incident investigations, right? So if you see the first slide here, it says when an incident occurs. So an incident can be a number of different things. It could be, of course, an injury, right? Somebody hurt themselves, somebody slipped and fall, hurt their leg. It could be a forklift hitting a roll-up door. right? Or hitting a rack system. That's an incident, right? That's damage to property. When we talk about environmental health and safety and things like that, we also talk about damage to people, property, and the environment, right? So we want to make sure that we're looking at all incidents. So we have a number of different types of incidents that occur in our facilities at all times. We have major injuries. And of course, in those situations, right, we want to make sure, just like the slide is saying here, that we're not even doing it. We're not sitting there, folks, and we're like, hold on, employee, you're bleeding out. I need to take a statement from you. Right? Let me go and put a tourniquet on you so I can take some pictures of that. No, folks, first of all, for major type of situations, even if it's property damage, right, a fire, whatever, and things like that, make sure you get in touch with 911. Make sure you contact emergency medical services or emergency management services as soon as possible. Don't even think at that point about having to slow down the response so that you can do an investigation, right? You want to keep things in your head, and you want to try to go ahead and document things, but at the same time, you want to make sure that immediately you're contacting emergency management services, okay? And then we have other incidents, things like first aid injuries. We have injuries where if you partner up with On-Site Health and Safety, which is a partner of ours, where they're like a mobile clinic, they come to you and they respond to first aid injuries, and it actually helps keep claims from becoming a claim. If you're not familiar with that program, talk to your risk management consultant, talk to your HR consultant at BBSI, and we'll get you connected with that program. But it's a fabulous program that we partner up with. Many of you on this call right now, you guys are using them already. But again, if you're not aware of it, let us know. We'll talk to you more about it. And then, of course, we have on-site help. Our triage system. So one of the first things is whenever there's an injury, you are calling the nurse triage that you have availability. We do encourage that all the time. So make sure you're working with your HRC or your RMC to ensure that you do have those injury reporting protocols. By the way, one of the things, this training is not on injury reporting. This training is on accident investigations. We will be doing another training down the road. In fact, I think it's at the end of this month on injury management reporting procedures, right? The BBSI reporting procedures that we want everybody to follow. So please make sure you attend that one at the same time. One of the things we are trying to do, I'm going to kind of go off the road here a little bit, but one of the things we are trying to do is make sure that on a biannual basis that our consultants are working with you on doing a review of injury management reporting procedures. So reach out to us, make sure that we are doing that with you twice a year to ensure that the reporting procedures are in place. And that's going to help you in so many different ways, including your workers' comp trends, making sure that the claims are moving along faster, that they're being closed out, and things like that. Okay, so just kind of on the side there, but this is specifically on investigation. So we talk about why we want to do investigations and why it's important. But what's just as important is that whenever you're doing these investigations, folks, I'm going to be honest with you, be respectful. You might think that the person is completely working the system. You might think that the person is completely BSing you, whatever. But at no point should you ever be disrespectful, right? Think of everything you do, okay, as discoverable in the court of law. Every one of these incidents, okay, can get litigious or go down the legal road. Somebody can get an attorney, and you never want to be the person where that's basically writing things down or showing disrespect, and then be in the front of a judge saying, what did you call this person a liar, and did you accuse this person of falsifying or causing fraud, or saying hey, you had workers' comp fraud, or being disrespectful. Always realize that as an employer, as a manager, as a leader, you can always be engaged with legal action. Especially in the workers' comp system, they can depose you. They can call you as a witness. In a court proceeding or a hearing. So one of the most important things is show the love, be respectful, right? Be professional whenever you're doing these investigations. Yeah, Robert, exactly. You need to demonstrate that you care, and believe me, once you have that trust with the employee, things will go a lot more smoother. Okay. So one of the things I want to talk about is that you should review every single incident, not just injuries involving medical care that people go to the doctor, but just like I said, every single incident. And I want to include in there near misses, right? Folks, what's a near miss? I want to ask you, in your opinion, what is a near miss? Yep. Anybody chime in? Yeah, Heidi, good. It almost happened. In fact, Heidi, you're taking kind of the words right out of my mouth. Losing footing, but catch yourself. Yeah, I love that, right? Deborah, good job. So, so Deborah, to your point, it didn't lead to an injury, right? But it was a situation where there was an incident, but at the last minute, it prevented an actual injury from occurring. Grant, the question was, what's a near miss? Yeah. So, just like Heidi had mentioned, folks, a near miss is basically it's an almost incident, right? Or like Heidi mentioned, or Deborah, that it's something that occurred, but literally did not lead to an actual injury or a situation. And many of you have heard me talk about this over the years. Whenever we do loss reviews or claims reviews and things like that, we have an accident triangle. And it's a common terminology we use in risk management, where you have an accident triangle, and the bottom of that triangle talks about how for every 600 near misses, right? As you go up the triangle, what it can lead to is, about 50 serious injuries that can lead to hospitalization or amputation, things like that. And then from those 50 can actually lead to one fatality. So you go from like 600, and again, I haven't memorized, but it's like 600 to like 100 actual recordables, and then 50 actual serious injuries, and then one actual fatality. So those near misses, okay, if they keep occurring, can actually lead to a catastrophic situation. So it's imperative that we look at those near misses. And what I want you to do is make sure that you investigate those near misses. Have a near miss process. One of the things I used to do as I ran corporation risk management departments is I'd have near miss forms. I'd have situations where employees would even incorporate within their safety suggestion process near misses. So you'd have a safety suggestion box, and then you also, next to that safety suggestion box, we actually had near miss forms where employees can go ahead and document near misses, and then they can go ahead and submit those near misses to the department supervisor or managers. Because again, we want to be able to say, hey, you know what happened? So you want to ultimately investigate every incident. And again, not just medical incidents, but also incidents that involve property damage, equipment, right? Things like that. Speaking of equipment, I'm going to start off with a quick story, and Janice knows this story. But we just had a situation recently where somebody got hurt. They were using a skill saw. And this happens a lot, especially within the construction industry, where we're using tools constantly. What happened was the person was using a skill saw. As you know, when you're cutting wood, you can come across knots. So it basically got caught, right? It catched against the wood. It got loose, and the person got hurt. What was disappointing though was that the person got pretty badly hurt his hand, but at the same time, what was disappointing was that particular piece of equipment, nobody took it out of service. They didn't look at the piece of equipment. They didn't look to see, if there's guards on it. They didn't look to see if there was a dull blade and things like that. Why was it catching? Yeah, it could have been maybe not, could have been the wood, but it was catching because the blade was dull, right? So one of the things we have to make sure is that not only are we reviewing the incidents, but we're also looking at the equipment itself. Things occur because of equipment use. So ensure that as you're looking at all incidents, you're including the equipment assessment in that process too. Okay. As you're doing investigations, look at it as if though you are in an episode of CSI, literally, right? It's almost like a crime scene investigation. What you want to do is get to a point where you're almost like freeze framing the situation, freeze framing the whole scenario. And if you remember watching CSI, right, what are these guys doing? What's one of the first things that they're doing? Right? They're taking photographs, right? They're freezing the situation, the incident in time. They're making sure that they can go back literally, okay, and find out what exactly happened, where the things were, where was that particular ladder that, that basically was defective? Where was the cord that potentially tripped that individual? Okay, so you want to make sure that you're taking photographs, you're documenting, and documenting. You're ensuring that you're getting as many witness statements as possible. And by the way, with photographs, you always want to, as a slide shows you, you want to be able to, say that, you are taking pictures. You want to let employees know that, hey, you are taking pictures. You want to get permission at times, right? Sometimes you might have situations where you're in an environment where they have prototypes or processes that are, what do you call it? What's that word, Janice? When it's kind of a secret. It's you guys know what I'm talking about.
Confidential?
Thank you. Confidential, or yeah, bottom line is like a it's well, you guys know what I'm talking about. There's a word for it. It's confidential, or basically it's proprietary. Thank you. My brain just went. Proprietary processes and equipment, things like that. So you want to be very careful that you're not taking pictures of proprietary processes, equipment, things like that. So you want to go ahead and make sure that you are asking permission if you're going to be doing that. Okay. So when going back to the whole CSI process, you want to freeze the environment. You want to make sure that you are preserving the accident scene or the incident scene. And what do I mean by preserve, right? Are you all of a sudden taking things away? Are you removing things? Are you removing evidence, right? Again, think like CSI. Are you removing evidence? Are you taking that broken piece of equipment and you're hiding it? No, right, folks? One of the things, I'm going to be straight up with you here, right? We help you with a lot of OSHA situations. That's one of the things that BBSI, the risk managers, do for you, is help you with OSHA situation, OSHA accident investigations, or OSHA hearings and things like that, right? Helping you with OSHA cases. And you would not believe how many times OSHA has gotten upset because the equipment, the truck, for example, if there was we had a situation not too long ago, about 3 years ago, I remember, where there was a forklift that hurt an employee really, really badly, took out the employee's legs. And the supervisor literally took the forklift, right, and put it away. They didn't red tag it. They started using it again, and OSHA was extremely upset because in no situation we have to preserve the accidents, and we need to make sure that you're taking all equipment and we're red tagging it, right, until we know, for example, that particular piece of machinery or equipment is safe to use again. We have to be able to document that all the equipment, tools, whatever was involved with the accident, right, you've actually set it aside, you've red tagged it, you've reviewed it, or in some cases, you haven't reused it unless OSHA has looked at it first. And my advice was, unless you really, really need that piece of equipment or tool, to continue operations, right? Go ahead and set it aside until your accident investigation is done, right? Or if it's a serious accident where OSHA is going to be involved, go ahead and keep it aside, red tag it, take away the keys, whatever you got to do to make sure that unless, before OSHA gets there, once OSHA gets there, they look at it, they also go ahead and sign off on it, then you can go ahead and put it back in operations.
And Rob, that was the point in the story that you were saying earlier about the skill saw. You had not mentioned the second half of that. So the first half was it was used, an employee got injured. It was a minor injury, but he still got injured and had to be taken to the clinic. Not even an hour or two later, a second injury occurred on the exact same machine. It wasn't looked at by the foreman on the job site. It wasn't looked at by anybody, and it ended up being a dull blade. And the second injury was worse than the first, and he had to be taken in an ambulance. So, this all correlates to the story that you're telling right now. But in this particular instance, and the reason we bring this up is because had that machine been red tagged, hey, we just had an injury on it, don't use it. Even if you need it, don't use it. That second injury, which was a more serious injury with an amputation of a partial finger, wouldn't have occurred. So that's where we talk about the severity of being responsible when you're on the job and making sure that you red tag, maintenance, everything else, the equipment.
Yeah, no, and Janice, thanks for collaborating on that or elaborating on that, because the fact that, imagine, once that injury or that incident occurred, even though the first one was minor, right? What should have happened to that saw? It should have been put out of commission. And I always use that word, put out of commission, right? And reviewed, investigated, checked out, documented. You have to document every single incident and an equipment inspection so that you can show OSHA that, yeah, you know what? I used to run Safeway's risk management department, and we had bandsaws in every single store, of course, right? The meat department, as you know. And if there was an injury with the bandsaw, we literally had to take that bandsaw, put it out of commission, red tag it, document that we looked at it, checked everything out. And even if we had 2 hours of downtime, which is a lot in the meat department, right? It's a lot of money. We still had to, make sure that we did our due diligence, document it, and then make sure that, we green tagged and document green tagged, and then put it back in order. We couldn't do anything unless we actually documented that we looked at everything. So yeah, thanks, Janice. By the way, if any of you work for Coke, I should get loyalty. I'm looking at this, and this is like a commercial. Okay. Anyways, back to some things. Now let's talk about the forms.
Before, excuse me, Rob,
Yeah.
before you move on, in an incident like that, when the machinery was not red tagged or taken out of commission, and then the more severe accident, that to me just sounds like that's a lawsuit for the organization. Could that be,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Who said that? Letha?
Yes.
Yeah. Either, no, thank you, Letha, for mentioning that. You're absolutely right. It could be a huge lawsuit. And remember, keep in mind, folks, just because you have workers' comp, right? And workers' comp is known. It's basically the whole point of workers' comp. It's a non-lawsuit. Right? It was meant to prevent employees from suing you for injuries. That doesn't mean that and Athena can speak to this. Janice can speak to this. Chris can speak to this. That doesn't mean that you can have a civil lawsuit. That doesn't mean that you can have another type of lawsuit from the employee because of that particular injury. So Lita is perfect point. So thank you for mentioning that. Tanya asks, what is a red folder?
Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead.
Okay, so it actually goes, it's a perfect segue into what forms we use. So in your red folder, which is what we call your injury packet, and Janice, do you have a picture of the red folder, by the way?
I do indeed.
Okay. As Janice says,
We've kind of been trying to get away from the word red folder and more just, accident, right?
Well-
But this is in your box. This should be in everybody's box account if we cover you for workers' compensation. And so this is what we call the red packet, or the packet that goes when a claim is filed.
yeah. So to Janice's point, the red folder is something that we give you. It's basically the BBSI injury packet, which is in the red folder that we give you to go ahead and fill out whenever you have an employee injury. And that red folder is specifically meant for ensuring that workers' comp paperwork is filled out. And that the claim gets processed, folks. So it literally is, it's in a red folder and it's part of your injury management process, right? So if you don't have red folders, actually, to Janice's point, we got away from actually issuing red folders. This is all now in your box account, and it's basically your injury packet. So if you have problems accessing that, or you don't know where that is, please get in touch with your HR consultant, your risk management consultant, and we can help you out with that. So now in your red folder or your injury packet here is a form that you can use to fill out your accident investigation, right? Now, some of you have heard the term OSHA 301. So OSHA by law, folks, requires that you do investigations on all injuries. And that is something that is part of our protocol too. And I want to emphasize that BBSI requires that you do investigations on all your injuries, and that it is a productive and effective investigation. It's just like, oh yeah, person fell. Okay, thank you. Well, how they fall, what happened? Was there a trip and fall? Was there a scaffolding issue? Were they not wearing fall protection? Right, so BBSI does require that all injuries do get investigated, and we give you a form to go to specifically do that. So Janice, can you show them that form, please?
Sorry.
That's the mod duty form, yeah.
Yep, authorization, release, medical information. This one, some of these they can even fill out when they start with you. Witness statement.
Yep.
And by the way, these are all fillable forms. So those of you that might have hard copies of the of any of our injury management folders, we now have soft copies. So again, if you haven't received our injury management toolkit, reach out to your HRC or myself, and I can put this in your box account. And you can literally download this, and they're all fillable forms. So it makes it much more legible, and you can actually add additional information under, how did it happen and all that. And remember too, when you're filling out this form, the more detail you give us, the easier it's going to be for communication purposes when it gets over to the claims department.
So
Which form did you want?
Pause right there, Janice. Thank you. Real quick, just go above to the DWC1 form. I just want to make a quick side note on the DWC1 form.
Sure. Whoops. One moment, please.
Okay, so folks, real quick, this is why we give you this injury packet, because a number of different documents have to fill out. This is a DWC1 form. This is basically an employee stating by law, legally, truthfully, that they actually have a workers' comp injury, right? And it says right here, by penalty of perjury, you are stating, that you actually do have a work-related injury. So this is the thing that has to be filled out. It's got to be given to employee between 1 and 3 days, I believe. We have 3 days to make sure the employees get this by law, and it gets back to us. So please make sure that this form is filled out. But going back to the investigation piece of it, right? If you keep going down, Janice, we actually give you 2 forms for the investigation piece of it. Okay, or what we call the what, why, who, where, when. Now, I talked about the 301, right? So by law, OSHA requires that employers do investigations for all injuries. And what they use is the term an OSHA 301 form. An OSHA 301 form is nothing but an investigation form. It's nothing but a detailed description of what happened. So in the law, okay, they actually say you can use, you know, an official OSHA 301 form that you can download on their website and things like that. Or in lieu of that, you can use an internal form. In fact, you can even use what we call the OSHA 5020, which is the form that is generated by the workers' comp carrier, meaning us, okay, that tells, you know, the description of what happened. We actually give you these forms here. So in this first form that you're seeing, right, we give you two versions. One is for the employee. We want to get from the employee's side of things what happened. You know, because the employee might have a different story from what you've come across and finding out. So make sure you give this to the employee and have them fill it out by themselves. Again, you're not going to have them fill it out while they're bleeding, okay, on their arm. You're going to give this to them, and when they can, all right, have them fill it out. You want to get their side of the story too, right? And if you need an interpreter to go ahead and do that, that's fine. Use an interpreter, you know, and make sure the interpreter signs that, you know what, you interpreted what they said, what the employee said, and things like that. Okay, so this is the employee side. Keep
And
going down.
Rob, Lita has a question. Go ahead, Lita.
Thank you. So the DWC1 form, that one I know is important, that's when they go to the doctor, that's the form that they have to have with them in order to go, right? Correct? They have to take that form with them?
No, Lita,
No?
good question. That has to be submitted to us. So all these forms have to be submitted to us. The
No,
DB
I know that. It has to be submitted to you, but they don't need that when they go to,
the
they
doctor,
just
no.
go?
Yeah.
They can just go and say it was work related, but we guide them into one of our clinics, our
Right.
NPN clinics.
Okay.
So what they
Okay.
need, Lita, is an authorization. Okay. And that
Okay.
authorization, because for example, Concentra is probably going to be the most common clinic you go to, right? For us.
Yeah. Okay.
Now Concentra has built in BBSI internal protocol for all of our clients.
Oh,
So
good.
all you have to do is make sure that you give them authorization, okay? Or one of the consultants can give them authorization, or you can actually go online and give them authorization to treat. And then once you let them know that it's a BBSI client,
Uh-huh.
right? Then at that point, they know to put it under BBSI San Jose, and always mention that. But
Okay.
all they need to treat employees is authorization of treatment from you or BBSI,
Okay.
okay?
Written authorization?
Verbal, could be verbal as well. You
Okay,
can
And
all the
perfect.
time. Yeah.
just to clarify that, Rob, hi, it's Athena. It's not the branch that gives the authorization or the consultant. So the best approach would be calling the 24/7 triage nurse. They'll give it. Otherwise, the employer has to give it. So that would be you guys. So you guys have full authority to provide authorization.
Perfect.
It is
Okay.
the best practice to identify the branch, or excuse me, the clinics that you guys often do business with or send your injured workers to, or, you know, if it's any other type of medical treatment that's needed from them, from the clinic, and to just make sure that they have a list of authorized representatives from your company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Athena, and thanks for mentioning that. Athena just said something that was really, really important to me. Athena, thank you again, which is, you know, and again, we'll talk more about this in injury management training, or as we do these biannual trainings with you, but identify those clinics that you know your employees going to, right? I know, Robert, you and I, we've dealt this over the years. We know exactly what clinics. Robert Knowles, who's on the call right here, he's got an incredible relationship with the clinics that treat his injured employees. And he's able to call at any time, give authorization. But at the same time, we also meet with those clinics twice a year to make sure that those cases are being moved along and things like that. So, you know, take ownership of that. And so, Athena, thanks for mentioning that. Okay, so going back to the investigation piece of it, give your employees this, we want to get their side of the story, and then you have a supervisor form as well that you use, which you see here, as your version of what happened based on, again, think of yourself as a CSI person, your investigation, everything that you come to go ahead and know of the incident. Now, this is very, very important. Folks, these documents that you see here, every one of these documents, keep in mind that just like you're seeing here on this Zoom call, realize that in any moment in time, every one of these documents filled out can also be discoverable in the court of law. So what I want you to do is make sure that when you're filling this document, imagine seeing this document in a court in a big screen. And if you put on top of here, this person's a dum-dum. Oh, teary-eyed emoji, poor him, poor her, what a whiner. That could be literally shown in the front in the court of law. So what I want you to do, again, be professional. Put on this document nothing but facts. Objectivity is the key here, folks. Objectivity. So,
And also,
go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say, also, one of the really important elements of this is witnesses. You know, anybody was there, because so many times we'll hear, oh yeah, was anybody there? Nope, nobody saw me, but yet there were 3 other people on the clock, and you can check it by looking at your timekeeping. So witnesses are really, really important to have as well, anytime you can get them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you also have, Janice showed you, we have witness statements. So use that. And again, make copies of those witness statements, because you might have multiple witnesses. So make additional copies of those witness statements. Okay. So again, going back to this, you want to make sure you're objective, you're professional, you're only stating facts and not opinions. Where do you put opinions? Where do you put subjective information? Well, what you can do is, I've always advised this, have a separate document, have a memo to file. And in that, your own personal notes. You know what? We heard, it's been my understanding, and this is something that is your own internal notes that you can give to BBSI as we file this claim for you. If you felt that this incident has red flags, okay, from a workers' comp standpoint, it's suspicious. You think that person's working the system. You think that this, and look, folks, it happens all the time. We know it. I had a situation where, I talk about red flags. I got a call Monday morning, first thing Monday morning, it's like 7:30, one of our clients. They're like, Rob, this person is saying that they got hurt, and this was it's a restoration company. And they're like, and they're saying that they can't come to work, their leg hurts or something like that, their back. I'm like, well, give me details. I'm like, did he say how it got hurt? And he's like, no, they can't pinpoint why. Did he say what he was doing? No. Did he say what he was lifting? No. Did he say what happened? He's, oh yeah, he said it was like Friday afternoon or something. And I'm like, well, do we have any witnesses? Was he working around employees? No, nobody saw him get hurt. So immediately, number one, what are the red flags here? Monday morning, right? First thing Monday morning, they're getting called. They're claiming the injury occurred Friday in the afternoon. There's no specifics. There's no equipment that was identified. There's no employees that saw him. So I'm thinking red flags the whole time. I was like, well, no. Okay, listen, this seems like a red flag. Have him come in, and he's alleging a workers' comp injury. So he has to come in. He has to fill out this paperwork. He has to file workers' comp paperwork. And he has to report a work-related injury. So as they're doing that, and this is something you can do, to Athena's point, is we contacted the doctor that we knew he was going to go to, and we communicated to the doctor all these red flags, prior to the employee being seen. We still, by due diligence, because by law, we have to give him an opportunity to report the injury and to fill out the paperwork. Well, it turns out, and I thought about this, it turns out that the guy was an MMA fighter. The doctor calls us, he's like, dude, this guy didn't get hurt doing nothing. He was kicking people in the head over the weekend. He's an MMA fighter. No, doctor writes non-industrial, non-work related, boom, released, right? But did we put all those things on this form? No. What we did was we had a separate memo file, right, noting those things that we had to go ahead and communicate to BBSI or the adjuster if that particular claim did get accepted, or the doctor still said it was work-related, right? Or if it was a major injury, we can still take those notes and give it to the adjuster, and then we can also go ahead and assign an additional investigator if we wanted to, right? And a lot of times we have these serious injuries where we do go ahead, or red flag injuries where we do go ahead, BBSI, meaning we assign a different adjuster. I'm sorry, not adjuster, but we assign a different investigator, to go ahead and look at red flags and potentially look for people working the system, right? We don't really call it necessarily fraud, but working the system. Okay. So have a memo to file. What you're seeing here now is an additional form. You can use our form if you want to, that's great. But this is another form that we have, you can use, and this is a little bit more detailed. This is really like a root cause analysis, right? People have heard the word root cause analysis, RCA. And what's a root cause analysis? It's basically digging deeper, deeper, deeper until you get to the true root cause of what happened. You've heard the term why analysis, right? Asking the 5 whys. Well, he fell off, he fell. Okay, well, why did he fall? Well, because he was walking on a scaffold. Well, why was he walking on that scaffold? Well, because walking was working. Well, why did he not have fall protection? And why was there not railing? So you kind of go through a why analysis to ultimately determine that, person wasn't wearing fall protection, and that's why he fell. Or maybe there was planks, that were incorrectly laid down on the scaffold. So you ultimately want to know what happened. So to Athena's point, very early, we never ever have that injury ever occur again, right? So if you look at this form, it's got a little more details on it. And then what I like about this form too, if you can scroll down, Janice, is it lists the corrective actions. For every near miss, folks, for every incident, injury, make sure you have a corrective action process. Make sure you know what has to be done in order to, again, Athena's point, so that injury never ever occurs again. Okay, so the corrective action in my scaffold story was that we will do training to ensure that we actually have scaffolding laid down properly, that there are no gaps. There's actually a regulation that say how far you're supposed to have gaps within the scaffold. All right. So make sure that you identify who's responsible. Make sure you identify what the completion date is. And by the way, for corrective actions, I like to have a tiering system, red, yellow, and green. So if a corrective action is in the red category, what do you think that means?
Priority.
Priority. Imminent hazard. It's another term we use in risk management, imminent hazard.
Mm.
We correct the hazard immediately. We get rid of the equipment immediately, right? Maybe we get rid of that bandsaw immediately, or that skill saw immediately. We remove the process, the equipment, or the hazard immediately, right? So it doesn't hurt anybody again. A yellow could mean, hey, you know what? Let's make sure we got about a week. Okay, so give yourself about a week to ensure that particular hazard is removed or eliminated. And then a green could be something like, a month. So give yourself a deadline, a time deadline. And then what I would do is make sure that every one of these incident investigations, near misses, right, are all reviewed in your safety committee. If you're not doing safety committees, do safety committees. I love safety committees. And typically what we do is we recommend that you have safety committees at least, quarterly. Now, again, some of you might be very, very small where you got like a 1 or 2 or 3 person operation. Fine. You might not need a collaborative safety committee, but if you're large enough, consider having a safety committee. Actually, by law, in your IIPP, it does require that you have safety committees, okay, or another method of communication. And you're supposed to have them not less than, not less than quarterly. So Chris and I, we talk about this. Chris is on the call right now. Typically, what we like to see is at least once a month. Because if you go 3 months without having a subcommittee and review, without reviewing these incidents, these investigations, and without making sure that those corrective actions have been followed up on, right? You might be missing the boat and you might be creating more of a hazardous situation. The other thing you want to do in those those state committees is also review your injuries, right? Do a loss analysis, all injuries, near misses, everything. So look at all your claims. You know, where are those claims coming from? Is there a trend? Things like that. That's why, you know, state committees are so effective. Okay. All right. Any questions so far?
Oh, there's a bunch, but do you want to go over this one or did you already go over this one? What do you see right now?
Let's see right now. No best practice. Maybe there are a few thoughts on this.
Is it the safety violation report?
Are we required to get a urine sample after every injury?
Oh, no.
that's-
I was trying to show the safety violation report. Did you go over that one yet?
No.
That's what was up, Janice. That's what we saw.
Oh, that is what you saw. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So I don't know if you want to go over this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that, and then we can get to the questions.
And then we'll do questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do the questions afterwards, and we got about maybe 10 minutes here.
Yeah.
So this is really important, folks. Again, realize when you have injuries, OSHA can pop up anytime, especially serious injuries, right? Where you have hospitalization overnight for 24 hours. If there's an amputation, a significant injury, a dismemberment, disfigurement, or fatality, that's the definition of a serious injury. OSHA will always come knocking at your door if you have those situations, because you have to notify Cal OSHA, remember, within 8 hours if you have a serious injury. So one of the things that you need to do is, if you have employees that actually made a mistake, look, there are times when, you know, think about the whole red light scenario. If you have somebody that's at a crosswalk and they just blatantly, okay, walk across the street, right, at a green light, and, you know, you have everything possibly there that can prevent an injury, but a person blatantly just say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and walk this crosswalk even at a green light. Whose fault is that? That's the employee's fault, right? That's the person's fault. They blatantly violated every safety protocol on the street. The crosswalk, the lines, the lights, the stop sign, everything. So if you've done such a good job in ensuring you have all your safety procedures in place, lockout tagout, for example, right? And you've got a lockout tagout program, you've got training, you've got all the locks, you've got all the tags, and somebody blatantly refused to follow a lockout tagout procedure and hurt themselves, whose fault is that? That's the employee's fault. So one of the things that you have to do is ensure that from a defense, this is actually a legal OSHA defense. It's called employee action defense. And we use it a lot whenever we defend you, okay, in these OSHA cases. We do a lot of this. So we make sure that, you know, we have something that shows that you actually coached the employee. You did a safety coaching. You actually disciplined the employee. And in the EAD, I'm not going to sit there and get too technical, but in formal defense of OSHA, there's it's what we call the 5 elements of EAD. And one of the elements that they have to see is that you actually wrote up the employee for violating safety procedures. If you don't have this in place, you can't win that EAD defense. So my recommendation is make sure you have this part of your IIPP, your overall safety process. Because if you do have to go in the court of law, or you do have to go ahead and defend yourself against OSHA, they want to make sure that you actually went ahead and discipline this employee. Now, if the employee is not available, still write it up, fill it out, okay? And just say employee to sign, or if the employee refuses to sign, put in there, employee refusing to sign, but make sure you sign it too and have it on file.
So Rob, let's talk a little bit about the frustration of an employee not telling us they were injured for a week, or wait, a month, or maybe 2 months or longer.
Yeah, in terms of them not reporting it?
Yeah, they didn't report it until a week later or 2 weeks or whatever. And now all of a sudden they have a backache. You know, how are you going to investigate it? How are you going to verify the validity of the injury?
Yeah, well, great question, Janice. And again, it goes back, number one, we have to follow the law, right? We have to go ahead and still allow that employee to report a workers' comp injury. We can't refuse that person to file a work-related injury, but we also know that there's red flags there. So go ahead and still fill out the paperwork. Fill out the DWC-1 form. Give that person the DWC-1 form. Ensure that you, as an employer, are protecting yourself. Submit it to us, but at the same time, let us know about those red flags. Have that memo to file. Let us know that, hey, this person is saying that they got hurt 3 months ago and they can't remember the specifics of it, right? And they don't know really what's happening. So at that point, let us help you in, and let the adjuster specifically also help you in that investigation, right? We, by law, whenever somebody files a workers' comp injury, we are still liable up to $10,000 to provide a medical treatment by law, even when the investigation is occurring. Because what we potentially could do is initially delay the claim for a potential denial, and that's what it is. We're going to try to delay the claim for potential denial, but at the same time, we still have to make sure that we're providing care for that employee because they're saying it's their word against our word, right?
Yeah.
So that's the key thing is make sure that you're identifying those red flags, get as much detail as possible of those red flags, as much information, and then provide that to the adjuster or to the BBSI rep. Athena, you want to add anything to that?
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. No, there actually you said it pretty well. The only thing I could say is that, in order for us to be able to delay a claim pending investigation before acceptance, is that you guys are notifying us right away, and you guys are providing us with the reasons why it would be justified to participate in a further investigation for that delay. So just saying this guy's, a fake or phony, we don't want this claim accepted, that's not going to be sufficient enough for us to be able to get Corbell or TPA to delay the claim. But
Right.
if you have specific facts that have occurred, just send those to us. And it doesn't have to be written, beautifully. Some people are like, can I just tell you? I'm like, no, I actually need it in writing to forward to the adjuster. But, it just could be bullet points. So if you guys, need to talk it out first, we'll talk it out with you.
And
But-
Athena or Rob on this one, is there, because I don't know the answer to this, is there a time lapse that they cannot report? Or is,
You mean there's a, are you like the statute of limitation?
yeah,
Great question. It's 1 year.
okay, it's 1 year.
However, if the injury was ever reported within that year, even something to the fact like, hey, Mr. Employer, I fell today, I injured my ankle, and it was no big deal back then. He says, I'm feeling fine. You take some ibuprofen, you check in on the next day, I'm feeling fine. Well, at that point in time, they let you guys know of the injury. So we would have to accept the claim if it ended up, if the injured worker wanted to file it a year later or past that 1 year mark, I should say.
Okay, cool. Hey,
I have
Rachel,
a question.
hang
Janice,
on
I'm sorry.
one sec, Lita. Rachel,
Yeah.
will you unmute yourself and ask your question, please? Rachel? So she might not be able to unmute herself. So she said, what if the person injured themselves, but when it happened, the person didn't feel it was bad enough to go to the doctor, but now the injury keeps coming back and they now want to go to the doctor, but it has been a couple months since the initial injury. She doesn't have a mic, so she can't answer. So my first question to Rachel was it a workers' comp claim?
It sounds like they injured, yeah, I'm assuming she's inquiring of an injury up on the workplace.
Right. So if they had filed a claim, you would reopen the claim if it was closed. But if they didn't file a claim, then you would have to file a claim.
Well,
She's
yeah,
like-
you still have to you still have to go ahead and follow the
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
because irrespective of they could have said, and we just had this 2 weeks ago, where the person said that they got hurt a couple months ago and it wasn't that bad, and then now they're filing a claim. Now, the situation I had particularly was a lot of red flags. But there are incidents, folks, where employees do get kind of nicked up, and at that time they're okay, but then later on it gets worse.
Mhm.
And we have the obligation to go ahead and take that report and give them opportunity to file a workers' comp claim. But again, to Athena's point, if you think there's red flags, right? Document all those red flags, try to get details. Well, why didn't you report it? You know, was there underlying conditions and things like that? Detail. Go through root cause analysis. And then if there are red flags, let us know about those red flags. If you just think that, oh yeah, you know what, the cut got infected, which is very, very common, right? The cut got infected because they didn't really self-care. Maybe they didn't do a good job with first aid. That's very, very common. Okay, fine. Let's go ahead and take care of that employee. Let's go ahead and make sure that we give them workers' comp and we give them proper medical care.
And also remember, we have not only the red packet, but also the yellow packet. We didn't talk too much about this, but we also have that does have a, work-related refusal to go see a doctor. And that's the one that's important to fill out. If someone says, no, I tripped, it's slightly, I don't think it's sprained or anything, but you still fill that out because that is part of the investigation process. And then that way, if they do come up a couple months later, or whatever, at least you have that on file. So.
Yeah. And it's also important because it is basically written confirmation that medical treatment was provided and that a DWC-1 form was given. So as we discussed the DWC-1 form shortly ago, even at time when somebody doesn't want to file the claim, we have an obligation as an employer to give them the opportunity to file a claim. And that opportunity is by filling out that form. So that's written confirmation. And you can always communicate to the employee that, hey, we'll check back in with you in a few days, see how you're doing. If you do not improve, you still have the opportunity to choose to go to see a doctor.
Exactly. All right, Lita, did you have a question?
Well, I was going to really just make a statement and you answered it, and I'm just saying with my previous employer, that's exactly what we did. I would just reiterate to them on a regular basis, any injury, well, I don't care if it's a paper cut or whatever it is, let us know that it happened. Fill out the DWC-1 so we have it on file, like you said. And if you don't want to go to the doctor, fill out that form that says it was offered, but I refused. So
Right.
yeah, you answered everything. So that,
Exactly.
Perfect.
And
yeah,
that's important too, to follow that process, because chances are all of you guys have a policy that states that if you're injured as an employee, you have a requirement to report it immediately. So if you're trying to ensure that you guys are enforcing that policy, then you want to make sure that there's a paper trail, and it becomes a habit. And so employees are going to have to notify you of that injury.
Yes, exactly. All right, any other questions? I know we're past our time just a little bit. Any other questions from anybody?